Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the Chief Creative Officer and Chief Marketing Officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume. Hi friends, Susan here. In this episode of the Spark File, we talk to my meditation instructor, Emily Fletcher of Ziva Meditation. As you're about to hear, when we recorded this episode earlier in the pandemic, Emily was smack dab in the middle of a big creative risk. She was making an online meditation program for kids. That program, Ziva Kids, is out now. You can find out more about Emily's work for kids and adults at zivameditation.com/spark. By using that link, you'll be doing yourself a solid by accessing a treasure trove of resources, and you'll be supporting the Spark File too. That's ZIVA meditation.com/spark. Enjoy the show.
The Spark File podcast may contain profanity and other adult content.
Please use your discretion.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Welcome to the Spark File, where we believe that everyone is creative, but smart creative people don't go it alone.
I'm Laura Cammie.
And I'm Susan Blackwell. If you're an OG listener, welcome back, Sparkler. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome, new friend. But you may be asking yourself, what exactly is a Spark File? Where do I get one? What do I file in it? These are such good questions, and we do have answers.
A Spark File is a place where you consistently collect all your inspirations and fascinations. And if you're like us and you're making stuff all the time, sometimes the wellspring of inspiration can run a little dry. We are here to refill it.
We're on the lookout for fresh ideas, images, and inspiration that spark our creativity and pique our curiosity, things that inspire us to get up off of our asses and make things like this podcast.
Or an entire practice built around making the world a better place, one meditator at a time.
Or a book that helps people stress less and accomplish more.
Or a treasure trove of free online resources to support anyone who needs them.
Or a beautiful home and a beautiful workspace.
On today's Makersode, we're going to talk to someone who truly sparks us.
And that special someone is someone who has influenced my brain, maybe more than anyone else on the planet. Please welcome Emily Fletcher. Emily, welcome to the Spark File.
Emily.
I don't know that I sing your opening song. I sing your podcast intro oftentimes in my shower, in my sleep.
For your auditions?
for 16 bars.
It's a great 16-bar cutting.
Emily, before we get too far into the Spark File, can you tell us where you are now, how you're doing, and what you look like right now?
Wow. I'm in Brooklyn, New York. I am in my office. and I look like I have half of my makeup done because I'm doing a video thing right after this. And I have 15 minutes in between, so I'm half done makeup wise. I'm a little sweaty because I did some cardio, dance, movement, weird stuff this morning.
I'm so curious whether when you say half of your makeup's done, is it like the top half of your face or the right side of your face?
So it's liner and shadow and lipstick, no lashes. And so since I'm very, very pale and have very blonde eyelashes, if my mascara is not done and everything else is, I look like a little albino bunny.
When you said lashes, I was like, oh, 3 sets on the top and 2 on the bottom. Come on. Do it Liza style.
If only. Oh, I do have a Liza Minnelli story for later. Let's pop that away in the Spark file.
Wait, I have to write it down because I'll forget.
Okay.
Where were we? Oh, yeah, that's right. Back to business as usual. The Spark file price of admission. Real quick, Emily Fletcher, you have to tell us a creative risk you've taken recently.
Well, it's a big one. I am in the middle of developing what I hope to be the world's best kids meditation training. And
Wow.
Yeah. And so you guys put me in touch with your sweet friend from Sesame Street.
Yes.
And
the amazing Matt Vogel.
Yes. And he put me in touch with some other folks. And it turns out that I had a Ziva graduate who was a puppeteer at Sesame Street. And then he introduced me to this amazing woman named Liz. And so anyway, it's just like a whole Sesame Street fiesta up in here. Yeah. And now we're working with like Harvard child brain psychologists and Dr. Shefali, who wrote The Conscious Parent and The Awakened Family. So anyway, point of the story is I've been teaching adults to meditate my whole dang career. And I've taught kids occasionally, like once or twice a year for the past 10 years, but it is by no means my area of expertise. And
you're making it your area of expertise.
Yeah, but it feels like a real risk. Like I'm building a freaking puppet. I'm like, I don't know anything about puppets. It's like, you're like, oh, it costs how much money to make their eyes blink? You're like, how many people does it take? It's like a real whole deal. It's like a car.
Yes.
And it takes a long time to build. So anyway, I'm learning a lot about puppeteering and I'm learning a lot about child psychology.
Where will this appear? Will this be online or?
It'll be a Ziva course. So it'll just be on our website. But I mean, from your lips to God's ears, like I do feel like this. So we have a character, we're creating this whole character and he's training to be a superhero and I'm teaching him all these tools to unlock his superpowers. And his name is Z Bunny and he's adorable. And so I was just thinking it'd be really cool if he does get on Sesame Street. But you know what, we might even make who knows? We might make our own like Netflix thing. Like who knows? We'll see where it goes. But right now my job is just to make the best course possible, but it feels scary and new. And I've been saying this stuff. I've been talking about the neuroscience of stress and performance for a decade now to adults. And I'm someone who kind of fancies myself erudite, and I like proving how smart I am with big vocab words like that one. And now I can't use any of those skills. You know, like the biggest piece of criticism I'm getting is like, what is that word? They were like, what does inhale mean? What does exhale mean? I'm like, oh shit.
What?
And I can't say shit in my kids course.
No.
So I gotta really go back to the drawing board.
But you can on this podcast. That's so, your brain is growing in so many different directions.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
You are officially admitted to the Spark File. That is a good one.
That is amazing.
Before we get too far ahead, Emily, for people who don't know you, how do you identify yourself professionally, and what would you say you're most well known for?
I would identify myself as the founder of Ziva Meditation and a meditation teacher. Mm-hmm. And I would say I'm most well known for making meditation attractive and accessible to high performers.
I would concur with that. I remember when we were looking for a meditation instructor, not the royal we, the company that I was working for at the time, we were looking for a meditation instructor. And that's why we were drawn to you. Because you do have a different sort of, I don't know, there's just a different sort of flavor about the work that you do that felt accessible and appealing. And the thing I believe I said to you on the phone was, I don't smell patchouli just like wafting out of my computer when I'm on your website. It smells great, but it just smells different. And yeah, that's good. Well,
Yeah,
well
I do
done.
not like patchouli. Not one part of me likes patchouli.
But if you do like patchouli, that's great too. Everybody gets to like what they like. Everybody gets to like
They're
what
allowed to like it, but you're not allowed to wear it at Ziva. like a hard rule. I really hate.
Do you really?
Yeah, it makes me angry. The color red and the smell of patchouli and men spitting in front of me all incite immediate rage, despite my 12 years of meditating.
Isn't that interesting? Well, you know your trigger points. That's good. We are obsessed with this work of this author named Meta Wagner and this educator. She created these 5 creative types, Emily. So I'm going to read you the list of creative types and tell us which best describes your creative driver. The A-lister. You live to make an audience laugh or cry. You love applause and adoration, or maybe to move your students. The artisan. You become so immersed in your creative work, you lose all track of time and space. The game changer. You thrive on breaking boundaries and crashing conventions. The sensitive soul. You need to express yourself and you hope your art will help others or your work will help others. And the activist. You have a fiery desire to right wrongs and change the world with your work. When you hear those descriptions, is there one that feels like the driver for the work that you're doing?
So yeah, sadly, it's the A-lister. It's so embarrassing, but it's true.
Listen, Emily Fletcher, if I could squeeze you and distill it and drink it, I would drink some of that Emily Fletcher A-lister. So you like to move your listener, your audience. You love that applause and that adoration.
Yeah, it's just so like embarrassingly nauseating as a meditation teacher, someone who's helping people to identify and connect with the thing that is bigger than their ego, the thing that is connected to everyone and everything, the thing that lives beyond the death of this body. And yet I'm like, I want to be famous and I want to be on Oprah and I want to like sell 1 million books. It's just, but here we are.
Oh my God. I am so loving your honesty and your authenticity and how well you know yourself. We will we'll ask this question and sometimes people will like inside, they might be like, I'm leaning towards the A-lister, but I don't feel like I can say that. So I'm going to pick something else. And we're like, no, of course you can say that. That is absolutely a driver and there's no judgment. And yet, of course, we're
you're
so conscious
in great
of
company.
Yeah. My God.
Yeah. But it's so funny. Like Cams has said this before. I think sometimes people perceive that as being pejorative, and we don't. We actually don't. We think that's a totally legitimate creative driver to have those aspirations. And I think it makes you an amazing entrepreneur. And I think it also makes you. It gets the word out. Like you, it gets it.
Yeah.
You're a big wave rider and a world changer. So I say huzzah.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a side dish of activist and boundary breaker. You know, like that's definitely in there. And that really, if you get to the root of the root, I mean, I could have gone a lot of different routes to, reach for, moving audiences and, feeling that connection. I could have stayed in acting, but, at the end of the day, yes, I do want to change the world. Climate change is, I think that we have this beautiful opportunity to build a whole new reality because our current one is changing. And so, yes, that's really the core driving force, but there's definitely, but like the icing, that's the A-lister.
I'll take it.
Can you tell us a little bit about like your origin story? How did you end up doing what you're doing and where you are now? So
I was on Broadway for about 10 years, singing, dancing, acting, and is what I wanted to do since I was a little girl. And I think this story will be relevant for your audience, but I definitely was deep in the I'll be happy when syndrome. Like I thought since I was in 4th grade, like, oh, once I get on Broadway, then I will be happy. And I was so single focused and I loved, I went to school for musical theater and was in my high school musicals and all of that. And it was amazing. And then 3 weeks after my Broadway debut was the saddest I had ever been. I remember the dramatic, like slow melt down the kitchen wall, like sobbing into tears, collapsing into a ball of tears and like not understanding why I was so sad. And what it felt like my dream had been taken away from me. And so I realized at a pretty early age that I was more interested in the happiness of pursuit than I was the pursuit of happiness. Like I was happiest when I was working towards this big goal, but I didn't really fully cognize that because I just thought, oh, well, my happiness will be in my next show, my next boyfriend, my next agent. And I did that for 10 years and then cut to Chorus Line where I'm understudying 3 of the lead roles, which means you have no idea which character you're going to play each night. You know, it's very anxiety inducing. And long story short, like I stopped being able to sleep. I had insomnia for 18 months. I was going gray in my 20s. I was getting sick and injured. And it was very confusing why I was doing the thing I had wanted to do since I was a child. And at this point, I'm full blown miserable. Like I'm having dreams about being possessed by the devil and having like panic attacks in between shows, like rocking myself in fetal position, listening to Eckhart Tolle on repeat and being like, this is not my dream. And then finally this girl sitting next to me in the dressing room who was understudying 5 of the leads, including Cassie, and crushing. And I was like, lady, what do you know that I don't know? And she said, I meditate. And I was like, oh God, one of you. Because this was 12 years ago, you know? And there's more of us now, but 12 years ago, it was sneakier, right? Like we were a little bit harder to come by, we meditators. And so I didn't believe her. I just rolled my eyes and I was like, oh God. Okay. And I just kept having insomnia, kept going gray, kept sucking at my job. And then finally, I was so embarrassed about my performance that I was like, I got to try something. So I went along to this meditation course. First day of the first course, I was meditating. I didn't know what that meant, but I was in a different state of consciousness that I had ever been in. And then that night I slept through the night for the first time in 18 months. And I have every night since, and that was 12 years ago. And then I stopped going gray. I'm 41 now. I have like 2 gray hairs, which I promptly pluck out. I didn't get sick for 8.5 years. I stopped getting injured. But the main thing that happened is that I started enjoying my performance again. And I just thought, why does everyone not do this? And so I left Broadway, I went to India, and I started what became a 3-year training process to teach. And then since graduating, I have taught 25,000 people to meditate. What? I have had a best-selling book that sold over 50,000 copies. I breastfed my way to a bestseller. I have a studio, a brick-and-mortar studio in New York. And I created the world's first online meditation training, which is why I said there's a little bit of that like boundary breaker, because when I did that, like the sort of esoteric forces that be in the meditation world were very angry with me that I dared create an online course. This was before Headspace. It was before Oprah Chopra. And I didn't know if it was going to work. That was a big risk too. I was just kind of cobbling it together. And here we are. And so it's been just the most wild, wonderful, rewarding ride I've ever
Wow. Whoa. That is incredible.
Wozy.
How long? So you kept performing after you found meditation, you kept performing and began to enjoy it again. And when did you make the transition out of performing and fully into entrepreneur land?
Okay, great question. Because it's a and this will check our Liza Minnelli box.
Thank God.
So I learned to meditate. I had 4 days off between Chorus Line Broadway and starting rehearsals for Chorus Line Tour. And in those 4 days is when I took the meditation training. And so Chorus Line Broadway, worst job I've ever had. Chorus Line Tour was the best job I had ever had until I started Ziva. And then when I was in Los Angeles, there's a couple cool stories here. So I'm in Los Angeles. It's our second city on tour. And I knew there was a bunch of meditation teachers there. So I was like, oh, let me just do some research and find a group meditation. So I show up at this guy's house. He's like, yeah, Wednesday, 6 p.m. Come on over. I show up. It's just him and his girlfriend. And I'm like, well, this is not the group meditation experience I was really looking for. And I walk inside. I'm meditating with like my purse on my lap, one eye open. And finally, I'm like, okay, they're not serial killers. So I close my eyes. I meditate. Afterwards, I open my eyes and I see this beautiful photo of a bridge with a light at the end of it. And I didn't know if it was a photo or a painting or what, but I couldn't stop looking at it. And I said, what is that? And they said, oh, that's Rishikesh. And I was like, what's a Rishikesh? And they go, oh, that's this town in India. We go there every couple of years for a retreat. Are you coming? And I was like, no. And I looked back at the picture and I looked at them and I said, yeah, I'm going to go. And so cut to 6 months later, I take myself to India for my 30th birthday. And we wake up every morning at dawn to meditate on the Ganges River at sunrise. And so we're crossing this bridge as the sun is rising on the other side. And I stop in my tracks, and I get goosebumps every time I tell this story. I have them all over my body right now. I stop in my tracks. I start sobbing, crying, because it's the exact same snapshot from that photo of the bridge with the light at the end of it that was in this guy's place in LA. And I'm sobbing, crying. And I know that the me in that moment has gone back to the me in Los Angeles and said, you have to come to India. You have to be a teacher.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it was like this beautiful, like time folding in on itself moment.
And then did you turn back around and Liza Minnelli was standing there?
That's it. Liza was in the ashram. Okay, so then I was like, all right, I come back, I start my teacher training in earnest. And to be honest, my teacher training was very intense. It was like 18 hours a week of meditating, hundreds of hours of transcribing books by hand in Sanskrit, thousands of hours of apprenticing. Like, it was not a joke. And if you're meditating 18 hours a week, like, you're basically purging every stress that you've ever had. Like, it is this massive catharsis. And the flavor of my catharsis was mourning the loss of my identity as an actress. It was just like something I'd been since I was 8. And this thing that I had done for my whole career. And there was just this immense sadness of leaving that part of me.
And it was a significant 30th birthday. Like, there's a lot in there. Yeah.
And I was like single and 30, which I'm Southern. So I was like, certainly I'm going to die alone with cats eating my face. So, it's all of that. And so I'm mourning the loss of my identity as an actress. And then I come back to New York, but then I get a call. I'm in New York. I start teaching acting, which we should probably talk about at some point. And I get a call from Byork Lee. And Byork is, if you don't know her, she was the original Connie Wong in the original Chorus Line. And then she directed and choreographed the Broadway revival. And she directed and choreographed the tour. So anyway, I'd worked with Byork a lot. And she calls me up and she said, Emily, I would really love for you to sing at Marvin Hamlish's memorial concert. So sadly, Marvin Hamlish had died. If you don't know him, he's one of the few PGOT winners. So Pulitzer, Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony.
Oh my gosh.
And he was the lyricist. I'm going to get in trouble with the music theater police. He was either the composer or the lyricist for Chorus Line, maybe both. Don't be mad at me, everybody.
Musical theaters raising their pitchforks and their torches. How very dare you, Emily Fletcher.
Yep. So anyway, he sadly passed away, and they were doing a memorial concert for him. And Byork Lee called me up and asked me if I wanted to sing at the ballet, which is the song that Sheila sings in A Chorus Line, which is the role that I played. And apparently that was Marvin's favorite song. And so I was like, of course I would be honored and delighted. But no, I haven't really like sung or performed in a long time, but I'm like, okay. So I asked my husband to come. And he was like, no, I'm not going to someone's funeral that I don't even know. I'm picturing like 200 Broadway performers in a church somewhere. So I show up for a rehearsal. So first of all, there's a rehearsal for this. I get there. Mike Nichols is directing. He's on the God mic. And, and I'm on stage and he goes, Emily, I need you to bring on your microphone because we don't know what Liza's going to do. And I was like, Liza Minnelli? Sorry? And he said, yeah, he's performing right before you. And I was like, okay, cool. And so then I go up in the dressing room and I hear this amazing voice. And I said, who is that? And they said, oh, that's Aretha's stand-in. And I said, Aretha Franklin? And they said, yeah, she never does mic checks. And then we're walking out of the backstage and I see a star, like dressing room star number 1, and it says Streisand on it. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. What is going on? So I call my husband and I'm like, babe, you are coming to this. And so it turns out I'm sandwiched, no joke, in between Liza Minnelli and Aretha Franklin. Barbra Streisand is the closing number. And like, that was it. That was my swan song. I never performed again.
Amazing way to go out, and good thing you'd been meditating.
No crap. I remember standing backstage and seeing Liza Minnelli like on the backstage monitor and being like, is this real life? Like, I'm seeing her on a screen like I have been since I was a child, and I'm looking at her on stage.
It's amazing for so many of us when you're sort of like, I don't really need to perform anymore. That's when like you get in a rocket ship and all those things that you sort of are like dreamed of, the minute that you're ready to be like, peace out, everybody. that's when Aretha Franklin and Liza Minnelli show up. That is crazy.
That's why I want to write a book called Quit Your Way to Success. And I'm not kidding at all. Because I made these t-shirts, like when the book launch came out, I've made t-shirts that say detachment is sexy. And on the other side, it says neediness is not. So like, because detachment is so sexy. The second you're over it, they're like, we have to have you.
I had a little touch of that last year. We did it was sort of a 10-year anniversary thing of title of show, and we did one night on Broadway, and I was like, I don't really need or want any of that anymore. And I would say it's probably one of the greatest performances I've ever given in my life, because I was just like, not needing or wanting something and still having the chops to do it is a remarkable position to find yourself in.
I'm so sad I didn't see that. I would love to see that.
I'll come over to your house and I'll do it with puppets.
You really? Well, I've got one handy.
I know. I'm going to take that little Ziva puppet. Now you may have just answered it, but in your personal life, is there a demarcation line, this sort of before this thing or event or chapter happened and after? Is it that bridge in Rishikesh? Like, what is your demarcation line in your personal life where you're like, I divide my life before this happened and after this happened?
Oh, fascinating. I have a few of those. I would say the first is when I started therapy when I was 24.
Fantastic.
And the second would be when I learned to meditate. There's definitely a big before and after. I do think that moment in Rishikesh was significant. And then there was another moment in 2015. I got married in 2015, and I made there was one before then. Okay, so this is it. So this is really to answering your question that you asked a million years ago, was what was that transition from acting to entrepreneurship? And in 2013 is when I was launching the world's first online meditation training. And now that might seem easy because there's like white labeled things that you can just like, here's my videos. But back in 2013, you had to like cobble this together with chewing gum and floss. It was not, it was very, very
MacGyver that shit.
Challenging.
Yes.
And I had no business like creating a tech platform. I could count to 8 many times in a row, but like that, it was just, anyway, so I'm building that. I was also opening up the East Coast division of the #1 acting school in Los Angeles. It was Anthony Meindel's actor workshop. So I was training a bunch of teachers to teach this style of acting. And I was also in final callbacks to play Velma in Chicago, the musical on Broadway, all in this 1 week. And I was like, nobody wins here. Like I'm failing at everything. And I'd say one of my big flaws, maybe every entrepreneur, but certainly one of mine, is that I'm just arrogant AF. Like I just think that I can do everything. I'm like, I can launch this course and be in final callbacks and open an acting studio in the same week. So anyway, that was a week that I decided to stop acting, where I was like, I am so much more passionate about teaching than I am acting. So I called my agents and I was like, I love you guys, but I'm gonna mail you back my 18 photos and resumes.
This leads to a point that I am so fascinated with, which is changing your choice. I think for many people, they make a choice when they're very young. Sometimes they make it when they're a kid. Sometimes they make it at 18 when they declare their major at school. And then they get into, a lot of educational debt and things like that. And I just feel like sometimes it's really hard for people to declare that they're changing their choice. And your story illustrates beautifully is that it really is okay to change your choice. There come those moments in life where you're sort of like, I'm changing my choice, and I'm calling my agents and saying, I love you, but I'm going to walk a different path. Please return my headshots and resumes. Thank you.
And there's a couple, there's so many different flavors and ways that this can unfold. And I want to be like honest about it in that, I had already gone through this mourning process. Like I had prematurely mourned it for over a year. And then I had this gift of, doing it one more time. And I think thankfully in my case, I was moving towards something that I loved more and not moving away from acting. And if I'm being honest, I think that if I was solely moving away from acting, it likely would have haunted me for the rest of my life. I would have felt somehow guilty, or I would have felt abandoned or betrayed, or like I had abandoned or betrayed myself. And I feel like deep in my bones, I can say I didn't leave acting because I was mad at the business. I left because I found something that I loved more. And I think that the tricky part is where you feel like, oh, I'm mad at this business. It hasn't been fair to me. And so I'm walking away. It's like leaving a relationship without cleaning it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like you gave yourself permission to continue the search, right? Instead of like continuing to try to shoehorn yourself into something that wasn't feeling right. You kept doing it, obviously, but at the same time, you allowed yourself to keep your eyes open for a thing that you would feel more passionate about. And once you like that, I'm thinking about that week that you identified, like it's so easy when you're like looking at, I've got the next 7 days and I've got these 42 things. What's really important to me? And just like in those moments when the things really rise to the top, it's easier to see like, oh, I wouldn't mind if this other stuff fell away and all I was doing was this.
Yeah. And I think that a good litmus test is to look where you're voting with your time and your attention. And that's not your forward-facing calendar. That's your backward-facing calendar. Look at
what does that mean? Oh,
so don't look at next week's calendar. Look at last week's calendar and the week before that. Where have you been voting with your time and attention? That's how you can tell what your priorities are.
This is why I love Emily Fletcher. Every time I freaking talk to you, I get like this little spark, these gems. And it's a conversation I've been having with myself recently where I'm like, my life is changing. My priorities are changing. And not just because of external circumstances or the pandemic, though that in some cases has been a catalyst out of necessity to pivot and innovate and adapt. But really, even before that happened, I've just been having this conversation with myself about observing how I'm voting with my time and how that has shifted and how feeling good about it. I love that.
But I have an amazing coach, like a life coach. I work with Lauren Zander and Lori Gerber at the Hendel Group. And Lauren Zander is not a joke. She's not for the faint of heart. But I had a session with her recently and she was like, you have to take a pledge of allegiance to the truth. The whole truth and nothing but the truth. And that I'm not like an outright liar. I'm not choosing to lie necessarily. Like I'm not like, oh no, I didn't steal that and I stole it. It's not that flavor of lying. It's the codependent flavor of lying where I have a tendency to people please and put other people's happiness above my own. So I'll say what I think people want to hear and instead of speaking my full truth. And that was already like a huge thing to acknowledge because you'll do that. Like people pleasers will even do that with their time, right? Like especially as moms, you'll be like, oh, well, I just have to take care of everyone else and everyone else has to be happy and I'll just write that book later or I'll just work on the kids course next month or I'll just won't sleep this week. And it's a form of lying. And the other real doozy that got me was she said, people pleasers don't believe in their dreams. Because they're willing to put other people's preferences above their own dreams, and I was like, "Oh, that gets me in the soft parts."
My God, this is like new. I haven't heard you talk about this before, and it's maybe something that's sort of like coming to you freshly, Emily. But this is next level. This seems like next level shit for you. This is great.
Yeah, it is. It's new. And this is also Lauren Zander, this is all PS from straight out of Lauren Zander's mouth. She's a freaking genius, but she's been saying for a long time, she's like, Emily, you have more to teach. You have more to teach. You have more to teach. But like step one is like, you gotta clean up your own house. Like I have to deal with my own codependency. I have to deal with my own people pleasing and just be so brutally honest with myself and everyone else, because if I can't teach it, if I'm not fully owning it. And so I'm just in that process right now. So one thing she's having me do, which I think could be a fun creative spark for folks, is purging. And this could take a lot of different aspects. I mean, some people even use their morning pages as a purge, but the way I'm doing it is that I do voice to text. So I have one note in my phone and it's just called a purge. And I usually have to do it before I meditate, because after I meditate, I'm like, everything's amazing and I have nothing to purge. But before I meditate, I can be like, I am sick of my husband's face. It's the only face I've seen in 10 freaking weeks. And I'm tired of working all the time and blah, 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 blah. Like I can really rant it out before my meditations. And I just do voice to text, and then I have to mail them to her. Like I have to email them to her, but you could do it with but you could do it with a buddy, or you could even do morning pages in a journal. But I find that like to catch that dark side, like I'm trying to use my dark side as my teacher right now, because my other assignment is that I'm trying to kill Little Miss Sunshine, which is that people pleasing. It's fine. It's fine. There's a pandemic, but I'm fine. I'm growing. It's totally fine. So I've got to like kill her, and I gotta, and then I'm doing it by having full compassion for both the light and the dark. So that's the work that I'm in right now, which I'm really in no position to speak about, except for what I'm working on personally.
It's so inspiring, though. It's like what you're describing when I say this feels like next level shit. When you have processed further along on this and you start to gain mastery of it, I feel like what you're going to be so in the center of your personal power, it's going to be banana bread. Like it's
going to be amazing for like
a force.
All of us like recovering people pleasers to, if you can lead the way, and we'll be like, great, feed us, because getting to the next step of like clearing that need to make others happy is so essential. Like so many people are stuck on that, and there aren't real easy ways around it except through.
And I think especially actors, because as an actor, so many of us go into acting because our childhoods maybe were like our imaginary lives were better than our real lives. Mm-hmm. And so acting specifically oftentimes, and lots of forms of art, but I know actors the best, so I see it the most in actors, but where the art almost becomes a form of escapism. And if you don't actually heal the original wound, if you don't stop that lineage of trauma, then oftentimes there is some sort of neediness. And that could be like, I need the audience's approval, or I need this person to like me, or I need this person to hire me to feel validated. And while that might be a necessary evil on the business side of the job, it is the exact same thing that kills the creativity and the artistry and the bravery to be a vulnerable performer, to be ugly and unliked and nasty, and like the whole human range of emotions that is required of good artists is the exact antithesis of this people pleasing that so many actors, I think, are healing from.
Oh God, that is the truth. So please keep us posted on your work with that, because I know
I'm thinking, I feel like that with you, Emily, you're such a remarkable teacher. I really have learned, I would say, as much or more from you than any other teacher on the planet. So good job and hats off to you. But it's striking me as you're speaking that you are always your own first student. Mm-hmm. You're first, you practice on yourself, you learn something, you practice on yourself, you gain some mastery of it, and then you metabolize it into teaching. And I'm so sparked by that. I'm so inspired by that. And I aspire to that. So I don't know. There you go.
Well, yes. Thank you for that. I hear that, and that rings true. And so I want to receive that. And that feels like a good title for a book, like Be Your Own First Student. Also, I want to toot your horn for a moment, because
toot it.
I'm sure everybody, if they're listening to this podcast, they know how genius and brilliant you are. But I just want everyone else to know that Susan is the person that I call when I have to do a big talk somewhere, or give a speech, or write something new. And actually, just now that we're like coming to this part of the kids course, I'm like, I should call Susan and see if she could just, share some of her magic on this. But
oh my God, I'd be so honored.
Oh, great. You're hired.
Thanks.
But I wrote the talk I'm most proud of giving in my whole career, because I speak a lot, but I gave this talk called How to Save the World in 2 Simple Steps, which you helped me to name, which still is just such a good title of a talk. And it was funny, and it was scary, and it was inspiring, and it was uplifting and also sobering. And you really just like helped me craft every single part of that. And you started from asking me like the simplest question of like, what upsets you? Like, what makes you mad? What are you most passionate about right now? And I don't know that I ever would have written that talk if you hadn't asked me those inspiring questions. And it certainly would not have been as funny if you hadn't helped me with it. So thank you.
It's my honor. And it's also my privilege to get to take the brilliant things that you say and your brilliant teaching and then take and turn them around and put them into big dopey. I've made musical numbers. I've made episodes of the Sparkfile podcast based on your teaching. Like it really is a cycle of inspiration. And I'm privileged to steal your very good work and put it into my very silly work. So thanks for that. Thank you.
Not true, but you're welcome.
So for our listeners, are there, you're just so accomplished, not just as a creative, but as an entrepreneur. And as we mentioned before, like making that leap. Do you have any nuggets of advice for our listeners who might be in that same space or a similar headspace?
Well, I think that it's important to remember that with any job, there's going to be pieces of it that you love and pieces of it that you don't love. And that's why it's called a job. And, you know, I think sometimes when we get real precious about whatever it is, like if it's your art, or even sometimes people turn their hobby into a business, and then it's tricky because then your ego is wrapped up in it, your identity is wrapped up in it, your income can be wrapped up in it. And so then it gets just more layered. And so I think just remembering that it can be, it's like protecting the 15 or 20% of your time in your life that's actually the hobby or the art, and keeping that part sacred, but knowing that the other 85% of your time and job is going to be a job. You know, I spend probably 10 to 15% of my time actually teaching. You know, the rest of it is hiring and funnels and websites and engineers and, you know, am I filed properly for New Jersey state taxes? And do I have workers' comp correct in California? And I'm not really doing that stuff, but I have people that are doing those things now. But in the beginning, I was doing that stuff. And I have an amazing team. And so I guess that would be the next step, is as soon as you possibly can, and maybe just before you can afford it, start outsourcing. You know, like you got to really value your own time, and you have to be honest with yourself about what your time is worth. What's that creative time worth? What's your, you know, if you're like the face of something, or if you're the only one that can make these woodwind pipes or whatever, you know, then if there's anything you can outsource for someone that costs less money than you do hourly, do that. You know, and I'm not suggesting that you get yourself in debt, but if there's something that costs you a lot of time and energy that you know you're not good at, you got to get help. You know, I
can't see Laura Camion right now, but I can see her in my mind's eye shaking her head. Yes, yes.
It's just so true. We were met with an interesting concept recently. We were taking a class, and they were talking about, you know, strengths and weaknesses, and this idea of like, you don't need to focus on your weaknesses and try like super, super hard to get better at all the things that you're weak at. You can outsource. It was like, what?
Because we've spent our professional careers like trying to identify weaknesses and strengthen them.
And get better at them.
And they were like, make somebody else do it. And we were like, oh, yeah.
There's this guy, his name is Dan Sullivan, and he has a company called Strategic Coach. I've never worked with him personally, but a bunch of my friends have. And like the big, brilliant theme of his whole work is like, it's not what you're going to do, it's who is going to do it. It's like constant, like, who's going to do that? Who's going to do that? Who's going to do that? And that is it's a transition. And even as a solopreneur, like, look, you're going to need someone to do your taxes. You're going to need someone to maybe clean your house, or you're going to need someone, like, you cannot do all of it by yourself. And if you try to, you're either going to feel like you're failing at a lot of things all the time, or you're going to exhaust yourself, or it's going to be tricky for you to really become the world's leading expert in whatever the thing is that you started a business around. Yeah. And there's a beautiful, like, just to get it a little hippy dippy and esoteric for a moment, but in the Vedas, which is this beautiful, beautiful ancient body of knowledge, from whence we have acupuncture and yoga and feng shui and meditation, so in the Vedas, they like to anthropomorphize different qualities. And this is not a story about like Hindu gods and goddesses, because this predates Hinduism. And anyways, it's already too complicated, but there's like a fable. Imagine it's like a fairy tale about two ladies. One is named Lakshmi and one is named Saraswati. Okay. And Lakshmi is all about money. She's like all about abundance and money. And Saraswati is all about knowledge. And the fable is that if you want Lakshmi's attention, put your attention on Saraswati. Like, you want money, get to be an expert at something. Like, put all your attention on Saraswati, and then Lakshmi gets jealous, right? But it's like, if you aren't becoming an expert in something, if you're not really doing deep and becoming your own first student, then you don't have much to offer or to teach. And so then why would the abundance follow?
This makes a lot of sense. It really,
Emily
really
Fletcher,
does.
this is why I love Emily Fletcher. She's always blown my mind with fables and knowledge bombs. As somebody who I have looked to as you've set my mind right on a lot of different things, I'm just curious, how are you seeing the world right now, and how are you supporting people? And also, do you have any thoughts for us and for the listeners about how they can be supporting people
and themselves?
Yeah, so I'll talk big picture first. And again, I will go back to the Vedas, which is just the most beautiful, holistic system of thought that I've ever come across. It's just a human interpretation of natural law. And there are some universal truths that have really guided me and helped shape my perspective and the way that I metabolize the world, and certainly big events like this. But there's this beautiful concept in the Vedas, and it is that there is no such thing as good or bad. There is no such thing as right or wrong. There is simply creation, maintenance, and destruction. And if we lead with creation, which, good thing there's this podcast, if we lead with creation, then maintenance is in second place and destruction is in third. And life flows pretty elegantly. Now, where we humans tend to mess it up is that we like the results of our creativity, and then we want to maintain, we want to hold on. And so then accidentally we start leading with maintenance, creativity has gone to the back burner, and destruction is nipping at our heels. And then we all know what it looks like when destruction moves into pole position. It's not bad, but it is not elegant. Okay. Then creativity is right behind. Okay. So this is the beautiful part of the story, because obviously right now we are in a massive time of destruction. Human lives are being destroyed. Entire systems are being destroyed. The school systems, real estate, higher education, Broadway. I mean, there's a lot of things that are changing quickly. And so the thing that is bringing me comfort is just coming back to this universal truth that it is a cycle. It is creation, maintenance, and then destruction. And so right behind destruction is creation. And it will be up to us. And by us, I mean the three of us and everyone listening to this podcast, because if you have subscribed to a podcast called The Spark Files, then you have clearly raised your hand and said, like, I'm awake. I'm willing to lead with creation. I am willing to be used as a vessel for nature to create things through me. And so it is up to us to architect not only what our lives want to look like, but also this new reality that we want to live in. And I think that as you architect your life, you build the confidence to architect a new world. And I'm not even being a little bit facetious or a little bit dramatic when I say that it is up to us to dream into existence the new world that we want to live in. And that means one that is not mired with systemic racism. That means one where people do have access to healthy food and soil. That means one where we're not hurtling our planet towards, apocalyptic climate change. And that means one where we're not dealing with political and economic divides. And that's, yes, it will take meditation. Yes, it will take creativity, but will also take work and diligence and bravery. And we won't have the stamina to do that if we are mired in worry and anxiety and stress. And so this is the time for self-care to not be negotiable. It is not a luxury. It is not just for rich white ladies to take bubble baths. This is like, no, we need all hands on deck to be marinating our brains in bliss chemistry, to be giving our bodies the rest that they need so that we have the stamina to rebuild the world that it would be fun to live in.
And to support people to do that,
Yeah.
I'm sure there are many ways.
So that was my esoteric answer.
Yes, that's a good one.
That was my esoteric answer. Here's some practical stuff. And I
Great.
got a lot of practical stuff. And like you guys mentioned earlier, I have a whole website full of this stuff. There's a free self-care center that has guided visualizations, that has an interview with my therapist, has an interview with my coach. We have child psychologists. I have breathing techniques.
It's a whole library. It's a
yeah,
whole resource library, free to anyone who wants to access it. Incredible. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just our self-care center at zivameditation.com. But what else? Okay, so step one, and this is really just the foundation, is we got to be meditating. And yes, I'm biased, but meditation doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be scary, but it is a skill. And most people are not meditating because they think that it is hard, or they think that they have to clear their minds, or they think that they don't have time. And it's fascinating how people are like still not finding time, even though, many people are quarantined at home, which really speaks to the fact that it was never about time. It was always about the fear of feeling our emotions. And that is the beautiful and challenging thing about this practice, is that it will wring you out. It will make you sit in your feelings and move through your feelings. So I would say step one, foundation, is meditation. If you don't like me and you think I'm a ding dong, go find someone else. But I do teach a technique in the book. I have an online course. I do these free, all that free stuff we just mentioned. But I would say, start a practice every day, twice a day. And then on top of that, it's listening to your own body. And one of the beautiful benefits of meditation is that it will afford you the ability to listen to your body. Because on Tuesday, you might want to write a play, and on Wednesday, you might need a nap. On Thursday, you might want to start a petition to keep composting alive in your city. And on Friday, you might need an ugly cry. And that's all okay. You don't have to just have one persona of the pandemic warrior, which is what I was doing in the beginning. For the first 6 or 7 weeks, I definitely, my workaholism is working is my drug of choice. And I just went into overdrive mode. I was like, I'm going to give and heal and save the whole world. And my back went out, and then that was probably the worst of it, is that my back went out. And then I just got I was just fun starved. I just wasn't seeing my friends, and I wasn't taking time for myself. And I just got a little depleted. And I just really realized that a week and a half ago. So I'm making changes. I'm doing more cardio just to get endorphins. I did this beautiful Zoom with 10 of my college girlfriends last night, which there's definitely there's some rules around for the Zooming, that it feels regenerative and not exhausting. Because if you get too many people on there, it's just a performance. And if it's not enough people, I don't know, I just feel 8-ish was the sweet spot of people that I love, because you can hear each other, you can talk over each other a little bit. And because I had convinced myself of a story of I'm on Zoom calls all day for work. The last thing I want to do is be on a Zoom call for fun. But it was actually fun, and it did feed my soul. I did that last night. What else am I doing? So I'm sleeping about 8 hours. I'm meditating twice a day. I'm working out about 3 times a week. And I am doing some ridiculously deep, dark shadow work where I'm like writing down every lie I've ever told. I'm writing down 30 of my hauntings. I'm like in coaching with I have a relationship coach that I see every 2 weeks, and I'm seeing my therapist every 2 weeks, and then my other coach once a month, which I know sounds like overkill, but I'm definitely
doing the work
in it.
Yeah, I'm doing the work. Like I know there's like a phase 2 for Ziva that's going to be like meditation plus, like this holistic life system. And I'm just in that work for myself right now.
Because you're the student first.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
I love that. I love that. You do so much. Emily, is there anything creative you need to do before you're done?
Like in my life?
Yeah.
Ooh. I mean, I'm not kidding. Like I really want to work with Oprah. Like I want to be on Oprah. I want to collaborate with her.
Yes.
I am.
Yes.
And now I have like 2 of my friends were on tour with her on her most recent tour. And one of my students was like leading meditations, and I was really trying hard not to be jealous, but I was. And so I'm just choosing to see that as a sign that I'm like one step closer.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I want to work with her, and yeah, I think I don't know what this thing is yet. It's whatever is like, it's just like getting fertilized right now. This new sort of step 2 for Ziva, but I think it's going to be big.
I love it.
I'm so excited. You dream big and you work hard. It's really, really incredible. What's it all for in your mind? What's it all for?
Well, I would like to eradicate the planet of unnecessary suffering.
Oh,
that's a hell of a what's it all for. Just that.
I mean, but notice that I'm saying unnecessary, right? Because I do think that some suffering is part of the human experience. People are going to die. You know, like there is pain. You stub your toe, you break your leg, like you have a kid, like it hurts. And there's so much suffering that is unnecessary. Have you guys seen that meme floating around the internet of like, it's a little boy, he's a toddler boy. I don't know his like country of origin, but he's Asian, and he's like holding onto a pole, and the water is like rushing by him, and he's screaming, crying. And then like all of a sudden, like 30 seconds into this video, he just puts his feet down and stands up.
Yeah.
And, like, it looks like he's going to like be like whooshed away in the water. And then he's like, oh, he was like in 2 inches of water, but it looks like he's drowning. And I often feel like that's what so much of the world is doing. Like we are suffering so hard from solvable problems. Insomnia is solvable. Stress is solvable. Anxiety is solvable. Your immune system is it has the ability to be strengthened. And yet we're just like, well, here I am. Like we're just choosing this victim mentality, and we're so addicted to the suffering that we need more and more of it to even feel alive. And we've got to flip this on its head. It is solvable.
I love this distinction. I love it so much. And that visual is perfection.
That's great. Emily, finally, who or what is sparking you these days?
Well, I'm sure y'all have talked about it, but if not, let me start my rant on Glennon Doyle's Untamed. It is a freaking work of genius. Glennon Doyle is my new spirit animal. This book, I have listened to it 3 times in a row on Audible. And might I remind you that I have a toddler and I'm running a multi-million-dollar company, and I listened to this book 3 effing times. That's how good it is. Like, it's so good. I mean, I'll tell you why, because I've been doing a lot of thinking about this, because I'm working on book 2. So I'm really like what's lighting me up and what do I want to birth? Yeah. And here's why I think Untamed is so good. 1, writing is Glennon's form of artistry. She's not like a meditation teacher hacking her way to a book like I am. She's actually a writer. You know, she's just like, oh, that is her, like cobbling words together is her form of creative expression, and it shows. 2, just like any good actor who is able to take extremely specific things and make them super universal. You know, like that was the weird paradox that I never really fully understood how to execute on as an actress, that the more specific you are, the more universal the reach. And that is what Glennon has done in this book. Her story is so hyper specific, where she leaves a man to go marry an Olympic athlete woman, and the whole story of her life in unfolding with her kids, it's hyper specific, and yet it rings so universally true. And she manages to alchemize so much darkness in her life into light. And it really, truly, it's number one on all of the lists for many weeks in a row for a reason. Please read it. It's so good.
Damn. Oh my God. I'm literally like, okay, as soon as we hang up, I'm getting this book. I'm getting this book. Amazing. My God, Emily. Thank you so much. Emily Fletcher.
Thank you.
I would like to give us a quick shout out for the fact that we basically did not talk about meditation or the science of meditation this whole time. I think it's because Susan's done it for us, probably like preemptively. You've talked about it so much.
I feel like there's so much on your website. You've talked about it so much. And we also are super interested in knowing you as a creative person, which I feel like you get less of a chance to talk about, which is very interesting to us, I think, and to our listeners. So,
but joke, your meditation practice has woven itself through multiple episodes of the Spark File. Like, it is a through line. So this is a bonus episode to get to really talk to you.
It really is. It's like,
it really is. Easter egg.
It really is. Take a shot when you hear the name Emily Fletcher. It is. We've got a lot of drunken sparklers out there. But all of that is to say, and I've said it before, I know I say it ad nauseum in my private life and in my teaching life, and certainly in my podcast life, but the benefit that I have gained from the practice of meditation that you taught me, which I continue to do to this day. Emily, how long has it been? I can never remember, but you can.
I want to say like 7 or 8 years.
I think it's 8 or 9. I don't know.
Yeah. That sounds okay.
But that has changed the course of my life, without a doubt. Changed it for the better, made my life so much better, made my work, my relationships, all of it, my stress levels, like all of it, so much better. And I cannot thank you enough for that. And I love you, and I love the work you do and the way that you're changing the world. We're so happy to have you here.
So I'll be back tomorrow. Yeah. I'll be on the podcast tomorrow and the next day and the next day, because this has been so nourishing for my soul.
It's all true. It's all true. Cannot recommend this work highly enough. So people ask me, they're like, how, not to be self-aggrandizing, but when people are like, how are you so awesome? Like, or how are you so calm under pressure? How are you so, but it really is, it's like, how are you? And Emily sort of laid out her map for it, but mine was similar, like a lot of therapy and a lot of meditation. Those foundational pieces so there's your 2-step process: a lot of therapy and a lot of meditation. But that's just one Susan's journey. There you go. Easy peasy. But your work has made my life joyous, and you are a joy, and we're so happy that you're here. So put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Will do.
This episode of The Spark File was recorded on Muncie, Lenape, and Seminole land, and we hope it put another bunch of sparks in your file. Listen, if there's a spark you'd like us to explore, or if you've taken a spark and fanned it into a creative flame and you'd like to share that, email us at thesparkfile@gmail.com, or you can submit it through our website, thesparkfile.com.
We will even happily take your feedback, but you know the price of admission. First, you have to share a creative risk that you have taken recently.
It is true. And if you need us, you can find us on social media at The Spark File. And if you want more sparky num-nums, be sure to subscribe, rate, and 5-star review the hell out of this podcast. Hey, if you liked what you just heard, share it with people that you love. And if you didn't like it, I don't know, Emily, what do you say to your critics?
I say, I'll see you when you're ready. See you at the perfect time.
I love it see you at the
Bucket
perfect
A.
time.
Bucket A.
If something tickles your fancy and gets your creative juices flowing, we are writing you a forever permission slip to make that thing that's been knocking at your door. It's your turn to take a spark and fan it into a flame.
Oh my God, yes.
You gotta take it and make it.
Thank you, Emily Fletcher
Emily.
Woo, love y'all.
Yay.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I wanna make or how I wanna be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Spark File. Once again, you can find out more about Emily's work for kids and adults at zivameditation.com/spark. By using that link, you will access a treasure trove of resources and you'll be supporting the Spark File too. That's zivameditation.com/spark. Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the chief creative officer and chief marketing officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.